no, yeah, the right one.
Testing.
It turns right.
Guess you don't need to be too close.
Yeah, guess not.
Right.
To order. This is the budget hearing at Bangor High School Middle School Cafetorium, and we will start with presentation of the budget by Mr. Lang.
Thank you, Julie, and welcome everybody tonight to the budget meeting and annual hearing and annual meeting. I want to make a few comments first, and I just want to talk about the order of tonight, and then I'm going to share some budget impact items that are in the board binders. And then we will go into the budget proposal, and you'll find that on page 5 of the booklet that hopefully you picked up on the way in. Then I will cover the revenue limit worksheet on page 6, and then go to the equalized value on page 7. And then we will go into discussion of the budget. And then during the annual meeting, I will go to the treasurer's report, which looks at the ending combined statement of revenue, expenditures, and changes in fund balances, which you'll find on page 4. And then Angie Whitaker, our business manager, will talk about Fund 73, which is post-retirement. And then the third item, item 7A in your annual meeting packet, will be to authorize a tax levy for the 2021 school year. So I just wanted to get in order to how we will present tonight. So I do want to say that I'm happy to report that we are presenting a balanced budget to the board tonight of 10.1 million in revenues and expenditures. And in this volatile situation that COVID has put us in, I'm very happy that we're able to present a balanced budget to you tonight. Our mill rate is down to the lowest point it's been in a number of years, and it is going to be at 9.74, which is down from 10.14. So again, another positive. We're fortunate this year because of increasing enrollment to get more state aid. In fact, 300,000 more in state aid, and which helps in terms of lowering the tax levy on our taxpayers. So that was a very, very good thing for our district. We also paid off old school debt last year. If you remember, we paid off the middle school, high school, I think it's now 3 years ago. And last year was the last payment on the knockdown and renovation of the old school. So that is helpful in terms of your debt levy also. So the only debt now that the district is paying is the renovation of the elementary that was done in 2007. And that will be paid off in 2027. So that is approaching. I know 7 years may seem a long ways away, but years fly by. So that is definitely good news for our community. We were able also to do $225,000 in additional debt levy. And we had a meeting on September 30th where we talked to Baird Company, and Brian Brewer has been our financial advisor for a number of years. And what that does is paying down additional debt allows you to save interest costs and also gives you flexibility for the future in terms of if the school would have to add on in terms of space. So you will see that in the budget tonight. Our enrollment numbers are stable, which is again a good thing. Again, given COVID and everything that's been happening, enrollment is very unstable through many districts in the state. So while we're down 8 students, that was a reflection of a smaller 4K coming in. So again, we feel very fortunate that our enrollment numbers are stable. We also underspent last year's budget by $200,000. And the reason this happened is obviously with the spring shutdown due to COVID, there were areas that you will see in the budget that were affected by that. And so at the end of the budget year, we talked as a school board, and what that does is adds into our fund balance and gives us flexibility, because one of the things that with our COVID expenses, which you will see in the budget, while we like to say that it's a stable number, it really isn't because of things are added and in terms of equipment, supplies, et cetera, et cetera. So again, having that flexibility of that $200,000 additional in our fund balance is helpful. You will also see when we go through the budget that some of the budget areas that were affected by COVID, for example, when we didn't have spring sports, when we, so travel, coaching pay, supplies, all of those types of things were affected in the budget. And so we'll explain those areas as we go through the budget. Our fund balance, as I just said, is very healthy. The DPI recommends that your fund balance be between 10 and 15%. We're currently at 15.9. So we're again in a good situation there. And the other thing, just wanted to remind everyone, is that a couple years ago we created a Fund 46, and that's used for capital projects. And we started with $80,000. And again, I'm hoping in the future we're able to add to that. And what that allows us to do is put money in there and get aid on it. And then when we have to look at some major things, it might be a roof or other maintenance projects, we can use that money for that. So in terms of our budget, again, in spite of all the uncertainty that we faced in the last number of months, we are in a good situation. Now I'd like to ask the board, in your packet is a handout 2021 budget impact items. So if you can turn to that. So this is just in the board packet. So when we go through the budget, and we will go through it by object and function, there in that budget, you will see some, did you find it?
It's like page 12. It should be after page 11. It's not numbered.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, we're all there? Okay, so in terms of budget impact items, I tried to list the bigger ones, the more major ones. So we have not awarded staff increases this year. We are going to discuss it at tomorrow night's board meeting. And then if there's any action, it would be at the November meeting. But because of the uncertainty with the state budget, my recommendation to the board was to wait until we had some certainty with the state budget. And fortunately, it's happened that we have not had cuts that were talked about over the months, again, due to COVID. So if we look at a CPI, approximately 2% increase, that would be about a $75,000 impact on the budget. Staff health insurance was a 5% increase this year. And some of that was borne by the staff who had to pay additional costs. But that is about a $50,000 impact on the budget. Next, COVID supplies / equipment and staffing. Obviously, you can see it as you look around the cafetorium here, the plexiglass, and just a number of things that were done to help us, ensure as much as possible a safe environment for our students and staff. So the supplies and equipment that come along with that, and then we also, in terms of staffing, added or increased our nurse from part-time to full-time, and also our elementary guidance counselor from part-time to full-time. Again, that number of 150,000 could be it's a variable number because we just don't know in terms of COVID, what's going to impact the budget. So there are a couple things that help. Again, we have some additional money. It's called the CARES money that our district, along with every district in the state of Wisconsin, received. So that was about $108,000 to be exact. But again, I go back to that we underspent the budget, so of 200,000. So if we have to dip into that, we will do that. But obviously the first roughly 110,000 will be paid for by the CARES Act. Next, first grade and middle school additional positions. We again are so lucky in this district. Our community has supported small class sizes. So we added another section of first grade, went from 2 sections to 3 sections. And then because of increased enrollment, we had 2 very large classes in our middle school in the 6th grade and the 8th grade. That's never happened before. Generally bubble classes, there's space in between them, but because of the number of kids in our middle school, we added a middle school position. And so those together in salary benefits costs are of $110,000. The next Cooley Region Virtual School, a lot of you have heard that was an initiative started back in May by the former superintendents from La Crosse and West Salem. I will tell you it's been an incredible journey from May to now in terms of the virtual school. At one point, the 5 districts that were involved in the Cooley Region Virtual School, in July, I believe it was, there was 3,000 students signed up. And in our school, we had a max at one point of 80 students signed up for the Cooley Region Virtual School. So obviously, as time went on and families decided what they wanted to do, again, this is an option that now 50 students of ours are in the Cooley Region Virtual School. And but there's a cost to it because we were not able to provide staff specifically at the elementary level. And because we didn't have, for example, 15 kids out of first grade or 12 kids out of 2nd grade. So what we did was partnered grades K through 7 with West Salem, and their teachers took our students. And then, so that's 25 students in K through 7, and then we have another approximately 25 students in grades 8 through 12. So the cost to that, and I'll talk more about how it's broken down tomorrow night at the board meeting, regular board meeting, is $100,000 this year. Now, I really very much anticipate next year that those numbers, and not just for us, but I think through the other 4 school districts will lessen. I really do. But this year, again, I just want to emphasize that if we wouldn't have had that option for 50 kids, I'm not sure what would have happened if they would have went homeschool, if they would have went open enrollment. I'm not sure. So again, the cost of the Cooley Region Virtual School is built into the budget, again, which is balanced for this year. Will be towards spring looking at a new iPad lease. We've had our iPads for the last 4 years. They are starting to show wear and tear. So the cost to iPads for students and staff, it's a 3-year lease and it's approximately $65,000 per year. Next, district office entrance security vestibule. If you've come to the school, you'll see the district office now has a security vestibule. And what that does for us is allows the district office to check people in. And because before, and this is common with schools that were built before Columbine, that the entrances were generally left open. So this security vestibule, again, gives us added security in terms of our staff and our students. And the cost between the construction and the security, software, hardware, $45,000. This new system that you're hearing tonight is we had looked into some different systems. John did, and I congratulate John for doing a ton of work on this. But what this system allows us to do is people can talk, and our audience can not only hear, but people that are linked in via YouTube. And the great thing about the system is it is portable. So for example, when we start going back to, because you remember we would switch back and forth to the elementary and the middle school, high school, this allows us to do that. So the cost of the system was approximately $20,000. Elementary fire panels and sensors, $90,000. And this is something that this is a placeholder, I will call this, because we have to get together as a building and grounds committee to talk about this further. But what this is again, our buildings, it's hard to believe this building is almost 25 years old. And then even though we renovated the elementary, not everything was changed in there. So right now, the fire panels in both buildings are hanging on. I'll say that. But if we have to change out the fire panels, then we need to change the sensors from analog to digital. So the cost of that, and we get bids on that, would be $90,000. Again, this is a placeholder for now because we need to get more information, talk more fully with our Building and Grounds Committee on this, and then bring it back to the whole board. The last item, a sidewalk repair. This has kind of been an ongoing thing, and we had money budgeted last year, and then with COVID and everything, it fell through. So what we want to do is on a yearly basis, put money into this to repair our sidewalks. I think if you've been in front of the building, that there's certain areas that are heaved and cracked and all that. So that is a priority in terms of maintenance going forward. So these items, again, will be reflected in the budget that I will present in a little bit, but I wanted to talk about some major ones, obviously, based on cost. So,
Dave, I have a question. The fire panels and sensors, is that both buildings?
I'm sorry, Julie, no, it says it's elementary. Yes, because, and the reason that it's, the cost is, again, the digital sensors are in the new part of the building, the renovated part of the building, but the analog, and the difficulty when Mike Stang, our maintenance person, talked to the fire, the people that he's trying to get bids from, is that because of the ceilings in the old elementary, you have to space them closer. So yeah, he will also, if we are able to do this year, we will be coming back to you next year to talk about the middle school, high school. And again, the explanation that Mike gave is that it's kind of like the situation in I'll use the gym. Remember when we talked about putting in the safety rails, which we did, but they grandfather stuff in. But once you make changes, then that grandfather is no longer. And so that's the situation with these fire panels and sensors. So again, a lot more discussion on that, Julie, as we go forward. Okay, now if in your packet, we will do the budget, and you will find that on page 5. And what I will do is I'll go through line by line and explain in terms of revenue where this money goes to, where it comes from. Same thing with expenses. And what we'll do at certain times, I'm going to ask Angie to give more detail on a few things in terms of changes. So if you start with revenues, and it's done by object numbers, so so it's object number 100, and it's transfers in. And this is our special education and food service, because we have to make some transfers in on that to make it balanced. So you'll see that for the 2021 school year, it's 900,107,783, which is about a $93,000 change. Again, special ed and that transfer in food service for 25,000, increasing costs in that area. 200, revenue from local sources. That is our tax levy. And again, that is based on the revenue limit. And so for this year, it is 2,725,617. That is a decrease of 70,000, which is good from the standpoint of less burden on the taxpayers. 300, interdistrict payments from Wisconsin. That is open enrollment, and that is what we receive from other districts whose students are open enrolled here. And that's 619,332, which is down about 89,000. Now, I do want to let people know that this is, when Angie and I do this, it's a 3-year average, because about 3-4 years ago, with open enrollment exception apps, they're called, people or families, students can open enroll anytime between July 1st and up through actually May, if they're not satisfied with their district or if there's other situations. So that 3-year average is based on past history. And again, because of exception apps, we can't put in a certain black and white number, because it could change month to month. So this is done at the end of the year. So obviously, we hope that there will be additional open enrollment exception apps coming in. Next is 500, revenue from intermediate sources. That's Medicaid. And then we also receive some money from CISA in terms of that. The next is revenue from state sources. And this is our equalized aid or state aid. And then there's sparsity aid, which districts that, like ours, that there's a certain formula that if you have less than a certain number of students per square mile in your district, you get sparsity aid. It also includes transportation aid and library aid. So the figure this year is 5,250,016, and that is up 298,950. So again, as I mentioned before, very fortunate in terms of increase in state aid. Next, 700, revenue from federal sources. So these are what are called Title I, II, and IV, again, from the federal government. There's also flow-through, which is special education funding. And this year, I mentioned the CARES Act for dealing with the COVID situation, which is about, as I said, a little over 100,000. So the total this year is $601,022. That's increase of about 93,000, mostly because of the CARES Act. And then if you go down to 900, other revenues, workman's comp, the reimbursement, if we have a good year in terms of workman's comp, we get reimbursed. And this year we budgeted 10,000, and we'll see how that, the reason for The previous year was 29,000. There was a previous focus on energy and rebate, and that's not, we don't get that anymore. So in terms of revenue, the increase or the total revenue this year at this point is $10,112,085. Overall, that's almost a $300,000 increase. And the percent on that is about a 3% increase in revenue. So again, a good situation for us to be in. Next, going to expenditures. And one of the things that I want to talk about before I get into the different lines here is that when you see these function numbers and you see 110, which is undifferentiated curriculum, that's our elementary. And then 120, which is our regular curriculum, which is our middle school, high school. When you see the costs in there, that's not just salary and benefits. It's salary, benefits, textbooks, supplies, equipment, et cetera, to run a program. So when there's some changes in there, just don't look at it and say, oh, that it's because there's an increase in salary, increase in benefits, which there is, as I said, in the budget impact. So that's built into this. Also that I mentioned before, because of COVID, you will see there's certain areas that were underspent. And so that number is lower than had been previously. And so it looked like, oh, we're spending quite a bit more. No, we're not, in the sense of it was just an anomaly with COVID. And I use the whole thing about sports in the spring and all that. So just wanted to, again, re-emphasize that. So we'll go through the functions. First one is 110, undifferentiated curriculum. As I said, that's elementary. Budget amount this year is $1.455 million. That's down about $17,000. The 120 regular curriculum is middle school, high school, and this year is $1,522,254. And again, that's reflective of salary increases, additional position in the middle school. And Angie, can you point to what was other differences in that function,
Yep.
please?
Most of the differences in that one, there was adding a teacher, that was $52,000 with total package. There's additional CRVA costs for the high school teachers, that was $5,200. The step increase that we have put in the budget for all of the teachers is $18,000. Somebody added insurance, that's another $21,000. And then the total increase for health and dental through that whole function is $9,700. So that makes up the majority of that $136,000 increase.
Thanks, Angie. Next, 130 vocational curriculum. This is our agricultural program, tech ed, family and consumer ed, and business. And it is $322,560, and that's down about $4,700. 140 physical curriculum, our physical education department, and that is $201,793. Again, that is down about $27,000. 150 special education, and this is the money that the district Fund 10, or no,
This is the cost for the teachers and
oh, yes, I'm
staff
sorry. Yep.
for, and all of the supplies
Okay.
for the special ed department.
I was thinking of the transfer. Thanks, Angie. 160 co-curricular activities. Again, these are sports, our clubs, different activities. And we're budgeting $240,604. And this is that area that is deceiving, because you see the previous year was $197,000. Again, that was because of the shutdown in spring for sports, different activities, so they didn't go to meets, they didn't go to conferences, that type of thing. So that's why that number looks more than it should have been. So then next, 170 special needs. This is our gifted and talented, our Odyssey of the Mind, Academic, 8,079. And again, the difference is, as I just talked about, because of COVID and the shutdown of things that those activities would have done. 210, pupil services, guidance and psychology. Again, that supports those areas. And it also supports our nursing position. And then also one of the costs that where we saw a big increase is the OT and PT, occupational therapy and physical therapy. And so the dollars this year are 468,145, up about 47,000. And again, it's reflected of what I talked about, those costs and increase in salary and benefits. 220, instructional services. This is our library, our Title II, which is professional development for staff, CISA costs, and then PLC, when we've been able to send people to that, educator effectiveness, iPad position, and that is 261,615, and that is down $21,000. 230, general administration, that is our school board, myself, and then my administrative assistants. And so it's 322,781. And Angie, I'd like you to give more detail on that, please.
Okay, it's basically broken down into two areas. There's a board budget and a superintendent budget. The board budget, last year, we budgeted $72,994 and actually spent the $50,581. 21,000 is not spent for like purchase services like legal, printing, travel, the census, the election. So when I do the budget for this year, I budget those similar amounts that I budgeted last year because those are flexible numbers where how much we're going to spend on Bob Butler, if the board's going, how many people are going to the board thing in January, how much printing we're doing, that kind of thing. So I leave that the same. And then the superintendent budget last year was 239,000, and actually last year was spent 248,000, and the current year superintendent budget was 252, and that includes Dave's salary and benefits, Jody and Jean's salary and benefits. And the increase from last year to this year was salary and benefits for Dave was only $3,600, and then extra time we put in for Jody and Jean because they've been doing a lot of extra time with a lot of reporting and with a lot of the COVID things. Jean's been doing a lot of that stuff, so that's $6,300. So that's the difference between last year's actual and this year's budget for the superintendent budget.
Okay, thanks, Angie. Next, 240, which is school building administration, and that includes our principals, their administrative assistants, and again, I wanted Angie to give more detail on that.
This is, yep, the principal budgets. This is similar to the board budget where there's items budgeted every year and maybe not spent on purchase services or supplies and equipment. So I'll look here. Last year, our prior year budget for this was 240,000, and 13,000 was not spent on those purchase services, supplies, and equipment. So that was still built into the budget because that was approved in April or May in their building budgets. And then we increased the elementary principal to 100% because last year he wasn't here for the full year. Oh no, my computer is there. So that was an additional $7,600. We also budgeted some extra time in for Melanie and Joyce because they've been doing some extra work with the COVID and other stuff reporting that they have to do. And then the general salary and benefit increase for that function was $4,000. So that makes up the difference between last year's actual and this year's budget.
Okay. Next is the 252, which is fiscal, and that's our business office, business manager, and that's 150,618. And again, Angie, I'm going to ask you detail.
Okay, so on that one, we had budgeted last year for some budget forecasting and the Fund 73 actuarial report, and we had some equipment in there, and we didn't end up doing any of those things last year. So that was $15,000. But I know that this year we had to do the Fund 73 actuarial report. We're going to do some budget forecasting because the referendum will be coming up, so those are still in the budget. And then the increase for salary and benefits in that department is $2,800.
Okay, thank you. Next is 253 operation, and this is our utilities. And so it's heating, cooling, water, supplies, and it's 370,216. And again, it's a number that we look at the historical numbers on it, but again, you hope for things like a mild winter or cooler fall, those types of things. So again, we do the best we can in terms of budgeting for that number, but it is a number that can change again, depending on the weather. Next, 254 maintenance, which is our maintenance department, our custodians, our maintenance supervisor. There's also some projects in there. As you see, it's up about 57,000. So Angie, again, please, if you can
So
explain.
in there, that function specifically has some COVID supplies in there of $15,000. There's an additional 21,500 in projects in there. Some of those projects are Dave discussed. So then that's got a $3,100 salary and benefit increase for the maintenance staff. We increased some contracted services for site improvements, which would be like mowing and OSI and any other things for the properties that we need to do. And then there is some budgeting in there of $11,000 for instructional equipment repairs or other equipment repairs, just things that I know we budget for, like if something happens and we need something in the FACE department or in the tech ed department, something like that. So that stays in there pretty consistently every year, just in case something happens.
Okay, next is 255 facilities acquisition remodeling, and this is things in terms of roof repairs, asphalt repairs, rooms, flooring. So we see that basically static, same as last year, 94,925. Pupil transportation, 256. Obviously, our buses, our bus drivers, repairs. Again, a very static number, 334,673. Again, I will say that the variable on that is repairs. We hope for good years in that respect, but in terms of buses, obviously the costs for repairs are costly. So next is 257, food service. That is our cooks, the salaries, benefits, and food, cost of food, obviously, which is a big number. That's 304,500, so very, very similar to last year. 260, central services, that's our general office, supplies, paper, copiers, telephone, postage, and That's 65,213. You can see that's down about 7,000. Debt retirement. Um, and this is interest on a short-term borrow and payment on our capital lease for lighting. And that's $55,452. And I believe, Angie, we talked, is that done next year? Do you remember that capital lease? I know we talked and I can,
It's
again,
either 1 or 2 years.
yeah,
I'm trying to remember my
Yeah.
spreadsheet.
that was the, the energy efficient upgrades that we did in both the elementary and the middle school. So we'll find out more on that and I'll let you know, but 295 administrative technology services, our computers, our iPad lease are in there. And again, technology overall, 290,872. So it's up about 63,000, which is because of the new iPad lease. 400 is non-program transaction. And this is a area that there's lots of different costs in, includes open enrollment, which we pay, we pay to other districts. There is early college credit program where our students are able to take college classes. Start College Now, where they can take technical college credits. Our co-op costs, we do a special ed co-op and a number of co-ops with West Salem, which we're very fortunate to have that option. It's also a special ed transfer from to 10, or no, to 27, sorry. And then the food service transfer, and then also CRVA. Yep. So you can see that that number is up. And 2,131,728. Again, a lot of that CRVA, additional special ed costs in those programs. Anything, Angie, else want to add on that? Function 290, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. Fund 290, other support services. That is our Fund 73, which is our post-retirement benefits. And you see that the cost is down there because we are going to start using that fund going forward. And because we also switched to a new teacher retirement plan, we are going to be able to budget out of the regular budget for that. So, so Angie, anything else on the 400 that you wanted to add?
Those are the items that Dave mentioned are the big items that increased in that. The CRVA costs and the special ed transfer increased because of increased costs in the special ed.
Thank you. Okay, so you can see that the total expenditures is $10,112,085. So overall expenditures up 5%, $500,000. What I will tell you is that a lot of that is because of COVID, which I mentioned before. Right now, we're budgeted about $150,000 for that, and the Cooley Reach Virtual Academy, $100,000. So, so $250,000 out of that $500,000 is directly attributable to that. So, again, with both those situations, we hope for an improved year next year regarding that. So then I'd like to go down to Fund 38. Again, Fund 38, there's a number of years ago, we did an upgrade to the HVAC system in the middle school, high school. So you can see that that was a state trust fund loan. So we will pay $17,744.75. It's basically, while there can be a little bit different in your expenditures and revenues, they generally balance out in those and Fund 38. Fund 39 is our debt levy. So you will see that if you go down to line 200, revenue from local sources, that the debt levy, this is for the elementary old school. I mean, elementary, I'm sorry, not the old school. What we did again is just the debt levy on elementary would have been a little over 400,000. But again, based on our Baird company, our financial advisors, we levied an extra 225,000 while still keeping the mill rate, the lowest it's been in 10 years. So you see the revenue is 625,200. And then if you go down to line 280, sorry, forgot to move that up for our people from home, sorry. So on the principal payment on the long-term bond, 555,000, interest payment 73,500, and then payment to a bond company, New York Mellon, 1,000. So in terms of payments, 629,500. So that basically is the completion of the budget. So Julie, if you want to turn over any discussion on this.
Any questions for Dave? Discussion items?
I was wondering if I lined with brilliance or just confused the heck out of you. So lots of numbers. The only person that loves numbers is Angie, but so thank God she does. So
Anybody, anything? Okay,
so Julie, then I'd like to go, there's no questions on this. I'd like to go next to the page, Moses. I'll get this yet, this mouse is. I'll get there yet, folks, I promise. I want to go to page 6 in your, there we go. This is it's called the revenue limit worksheet. And again, it's on page 6 in your packet. And basically what this sheet does is based on your enrollment, based on your expenditures, it lets you know how much you can levy in your district and how much state aid. And I won't go all through all of the numbers with you, just that every school district and every public school in the state of Wisconsin has to fill out this revenue limit worksheet. And if you go to the right column, I just want to highlight that line 10A, again, the support of our community, $800,000 in referendum support is wonderful. That number is there. And then if you go to line 12, total aid to be used in the computation, as I said, our aid is up a little over $300,000, which is very beneficial to our district. Then if you skip down to 14A, that number 2,552,117 is what our district can levy our taxpayers under what's called general operations. Then if you go down to 15A, that is our debt levy, which I talked about a little bit before, of 625,200. So line 16 is the all fund tax levy. So it's broken up by general levy, which is the 2.5 million, and then the debt levy of 625,000. So in terms of a total tax for the taxpayers, 3,177,317. So what that does, if you look at line 16, it gives you your levy rate. Now, levy rate simply means that for every $1,000 worth of valuation on your property, approximately you would pay $9.74 for in-school taxes. Now, that isn't exact. It kind of depends on what municipality you live in. And it also doesn't mean that your taxes necessarily will go down. Depends on, again, your valuation in your municipality. So, but I am happy to say that the 9.74 is the lowest it's been since pre-Act 10, if any of you remember Act 10 many years ago. And so I'm happy to report that because I know one of the things that our board watches very, very closely is the levy rate. So as I said, last year was 10.14. The year before that was 10.41. So I'm very happy to report to our community that our levy rate went down from last year. Then the other point I want to just go to the next sheet, 7, which is our valuations, our equalized value of our district. And I'll just call your attention to the right side of the column. So if our equalized value went up almost 5%, from 310 million up to 573,966 up to 326,051,975. And you can see in that column the full value, the second one from the end, each village or town's share of that value. So again, that is the equalized value. So I believe, Julie, that is all I have in terms of the budget presentation. So.
Any questions for Dave?
No question, though.
I'm sorry, Joni, tell me your motion again.
I move to adjourn the budget hearing.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Motion made by Joni, seconded by Lori to adjourn the budget meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. We will move right into the annual meeting. I'd like to call the annual meeting to order. I entertain a motion to nominate a chairperson.
I'll move to elect Julie Myers as chair.
I'll second that.
I'll move to close nominations and call for a vote.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Paul to close nominations and call for a vote, seconded by Shelley. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. So let's see here. So Minutes of the last annual meeting can be waived.
We've got to elect a clerk.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, clerk. Okay. I entertain a nomination to nominate a clerk for the meeting.
I'll make a motion to nominate Shelley.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Lori, seconded by Shelley seconded by Paul to nominate Shelley for clerk. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. So reading of the minutes from the last annual meeting, we can waive these minutes. They are in our packet, or we can read through them.
I'll make a motion to waive the reading.
Second.
Motion made by Shelley, seconded by Paul to waive the reading of the 2019 annual meeting minutes and approve them as printed. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Treasurers report.
I can do that, Julie. If you go to page 4. Okay, this is the combined statement of revenues and expenditures and changes in fund balance for the year ended June 30th, 2020. So if you look at the revenue side, our local sources, again, this is tax levy. It was $2,675,490. Our interdistrict sources, this was open enrollment. We received from other districts, $709,102. Intermediate sources is Medicaid and CISA special. This was $6,875. State sources, this includes equalized aid, state aid, sparsity aid, transportation, library aid. That was $4,946,087. Federal sources, again, titles 1, 2, and 4, our REAP grant, and our flow through, among others, $358,897. And then under other workman's comp, reimbursement of $29,663. So revenues last year were $8,726,114. Under expenditures, and this is instructions, so this includes salary, benefits, supplies, all of those things are put together, equipment, et cetera. $4,271,621. Sports services, our aides, our cooks, our maintenance, our bus drivers, and transportation, facilities, utilities, that's $3,108,101. And then non-program transactions, open enrollment, youth options, which the early college credit programs start college now. And then some special ed placements, Cooley Connection, Call, Driftless, our co-curriculars are under there, and our co-ops with West Salem, $1,138,533. So our total expenditures were $8,518,255. So our excess of revenues over expenditures was $207,859, and I referred to that before. Obviously, we put it in fund balance. So other financing charge, operating transfers in $788,820 for special ed. And sale of fixed assets, 4,908, and then operating transfers out, 788,820. So the net was 4,908. So excess of revenues and other sources over expenditures, 212,767. So our fund balance at the beginning of the year of last year was $1,142,032. Our fund balance at the end of the fiscal year on June 30th is $1,354,799. And that's 15.9%. So again, that's assets over liabilities. So that's a treasurer's report. Any questions?
I'll move to approve the treasury report as read.
Second.
Motion made by Paul, seconded by Joni to approve the treasurer's report as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next report on Fund 73, which is our post-retirement.
And that, I'm going to turn it over to Angie for that.
Okay, so the balance in Fund 73 as of June 30th, 2020 is $593,885.88. The interest received was $10,429.19, and benefits paid were $98,425.48.
Thank you, Angie. Old business? Barring none. New business, authorize a tax levy for the 2020-2021 school year.
In your packet, board members, you will see a single sheet, it's annual meeting 2020, item 7A, authorize a tax levy for the 2020-21 school year. Gene, is that kind of in the back, do you know?
Right before the,
Still playing around with it. So that you would just need a motion and a second with those figures.
I would make that motion to authorize a total tax levy of $3,177,317, which includes $2,552,117 for Fund 10 and $625,200 for debt service for the 2020-2021 school year.
I'll second.
motion made by Paul, seconded by Lori to authorize the tax levy as was presented by Paul for the 2020-2021 school year. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Next item, authorize the board to direct and provide for the presentation. Oh, I'm sorry. What? Am I reading wrong? Oh, I'm sorry. Got it. Authorize the board to direct and provide for the prosecution or defense of legal actions or proceedings in which the district has an interest. So I entertain a motion to authorize the board to direct and provide for the prosecution or the defense of legal actions or proceedings in which the district has any interest.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Joni, seconded by Paul to approve authorization. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Authorize the board to borrow on short term when necessary.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Paul, seconded by Joni to approve authorization. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Authorize the board to change the annual meeting date.
So moved. So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Lori, seconded by Shelley to approve authorization. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Authorize the payment of expenses for board members in their performances outside normal duties.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Joni, seconded by Paul to approve authorization. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Authorize the board to sell obsolete items.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion made by Lori, seconded by Paul to approve authorization. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Authorize the board to designate district depositories.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Shelley, seconded by Joni to approve authorization. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Authorize the board to designate official newspaper.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Paul, seconded by Tina to approve authorization. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Set salaries for board members for 2020, 2021. Present salaries are president, 1,600 per year, vice president, 1,600 per year, clerk, 1,600 per year, treasurer, 1,600 per year, other members, 1,500 per year.
I make a motion to approve of where they are right now.
Second that.
Motion by Paul, motion by Shelley, seconded by Paul to leave the salaries as is for the 2020, 2021 school year. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So the goals for the 2020-21 school year, I will read those. 1, develop relationships that promote social and emotional learning and physical well-being for all. 2, practice safety and security by utilizing guidelines from federal, state, county, and local government when applicable to encourage student learning. 3, continue to monitor the
Julie,
areas.
that's not what we have in our binders. Is Julie's correct or is ours correct?
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. They're just not the same, so I want to make sure that we're looking at the right thing. I don't have,
I think these are correct.
these are, I think the ones in our binders are last year's.
Yeah.
Okay. So the ones in our binders are from 2019, 20.
This I printed off from the email that Dave sent. And these, I was on the committee. This is correct.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think
Yeah.
that one's correct, but that's not what's in the binder. And that's not what those guys have. So
Okay.
can you start over?
Yes,
again,
I
Julie,
will
please?
start over. These are the goals for our 2020, 2021 school year. 1, develop relationships that promote social and emotional learning and physical well-being for all. 2, practice safety and security by utilizing guidelines from federal, state, county, and local government when applicable to encourage student learning. 3, continue to monitor the areas of reading and math at all levels. 4, utilize professional learning community collaboration to implement personalized learning, including removing remaining barriers to distance and hybrid learning to improve student learning and growth. I entertain a motion to approve. I apologize, the correct ones are not in your packets.
I'll make a motion to approve the district goals as read by Julie.
I'll second that.
Motion by Lori, seconded by Shelley to approve the goals for the 2020-2021 school year as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Public comments.
My first question is on the last year's budget, the sheet, I don't know what to call it. There,
Do you have a page number?
page 4 on mine, but I
Okay.
don't know if it's your page 4,
We'll check it out.
with the year ended June 30th. Looks like there was a carryover of $212,000. And then at the end of the year, sitting in Fund 10, there was $1.3 million. Where does that $1.3 million go?
Fund balance is basically the makeup of assets minus liabilities. So that is including our buildings, any equipment that we have, any cash we have in the bank. So it's misleading in the fact that we're saying we have 1.3 million in the bank. That's not true. We have 1.3 million of assets minus liabilities.
Okay, so then the 212,000 though, was that carryover money? Was that money itself?
Not necessarily. It's not just cash. It's just like a balance sheet.
So did
It's
you have a
accounting.
carryover of cash into this?
Yeah,
year?
there's money that, yeah,
And
there's
what
always
was-
a cash account.
And what,
Yes.
no, like in your, out of your budget, the money you didn't spend,
Yeah.
how much money was that from last year?
212,000.
Okay, so then that's not just assets, that's cash. That's money you didn't spend.
It's the assets minus liabilities, yes. Part of it is cash. I can't tell you exactly how much is cash that's in there. I can tell you I can look up the balance of cash at the end of June 30th. If that's what you want.
Yeah, like what I'm saying is if you give someone a budget
Mhm.
and they don't spend that full budget of
Right?
whatever, where does that leftover money go?
Well, it went into if there's cash, it went into the cash account.
Yeah, and that's what I'm
Yeah.
wondering, how
Yep.
much there was and how much
I can
carries
check
over.
how much is at the end of June 30th in cash. Oh, I gotta add all those together. There was $367,750 in cash at the end of June.
Okay, so then that's what I'm asking is that cash.
That's part of it, yep.
It carries over into this year's
Yep,
budget or
yep.
you?
Nope, it carries
allocate
over.
It carries
Yep.
over. Into what funds? You just add it into your current budget?
It's in the
and
general fund.
Divvy it out?
It just stays in the general fund.
Okay. So like all the expenditures, you just kind of mix it in there.
What do you mean by?
Okay,
mix?
so like if I have a carryover budget of $20,000,
Mhm.
then I reallocate that to different things, like different expenditures.
This is just sitting in the fund balance. The new budget is new money and new expenses.
Okay, so
We're
you
not-
just leave that money sit, you don't
Yeah.
even do anything with it?
Yep. Unless it's needed.
Okay.
Any other public comments?
I was just really curious on the transportation from the 18 to 19. Why is that so much higher than actual 19 and 20? Is there like a purchase or a repair
Yeah.
that we had?
Yeah, Kelly, it's combination is that 2 years ago, we bought a bus, and buses usually go about $90,000 brand new. Also, there can be, if you have, as I was saying before, you have a bad repair year. Those are probably two of the big variables. So like what we try to do is go every other year with buying a new bus. So a couple years ago, it was a 72 passenger bus. And then actually last year, we bought a short bus, we call it, for special ed transportation. So when you see a big variable, a lot of times it's based that we bought, bought a new bus.
So last year, I know there was a bus that had a lot of breakdowns. I thought that was approved to buy a new bus last year. Did that not happen just with timing and?
Yeah, we did have, and we finally, very honestly, after taking it in a number of times, they found out what was wrong with it. And it's, in terms of miles and everything, it's probably middle of the road in terms of it's not an older bus or whatever. But yeah, there was something, very honestly, that finally, it was a Bluebird mechanic was able to figure out what it was. So it's knock on plastic that keeps up, so.
Okay. The other comment I had was just on the Cooley Region Virtual Academy. I may not be accurate in saying this, but to me, it looks like, I know that looks like a big cost, but the potential based on numbers of revenue you could have lost to students leaving if we didn't do that, it looks like a positive to me. Is that correct in reading that?
Yeah, thank you. And we will talk about it more fully tomorrow night, Kelly, at the meeting, but, so for example, if 50 students would have chosen, like, let's say a number of them would have said, and their parents that feel strongly, they don't want to send their kids, in the current COVID environment. So let's say that 20 of them said, well, I'll homeschool. So then there would be no aid or anything to the district. If the other 30 would have said, well, I'm going to open enroll to a district that does have a virtual option. This year, open enrollment costs are estimated to be $8,200 per student. So in terms of costs, what we could have lost, anywhere from 300 to 400,000 if we wouldn't have offered a option like the Cooley Region Virtual Academy.
Okay. The other comment I had is I just wanted to point out, I know vocational is a large line item, but just thank you for continuing to support that program.
Okay.
That's all I had.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
I just have one more. When you talked on the budget about salaries and everything for staff, administration, school building administration, when you take into account raises, are those straight across the board or is performance accounted for?
The way that they're figured, Mandy, is this year, and we follow that pretty closely, is for support staff administration, they've been CPI increases, Consumer Price Index. And then with our teachers, we have a salary model that's has steps to it. So, and the lanes are if you have a bachelor's degree or master's degree, but then for each year of experience, it's a $900 increase. So to answer, it is not, what did you say?
Performance.
Across the board.
Performance, yeah. I mean, the performance piece is separate in that we do evaluations on teachers under our educator effectiveness model. So
And same for support staff and administration,
the
like the reviews?
yeah, but they're not done by law with teachers. You have to do them every 3 years. If they're brand new, then you have to do it every year till they're off probation. So.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, thank you. I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Lori, seconded by Shelley to adjourn our annual meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.